Hello, my name is Gwen. Today is Friday, September the 1st, 2017, and the time is about 11:30 a.m. I'm going to talk a little bit about the feminine movement. I see a lot of young ladies are talking feminism and the feminine movement and all of that. And I'm going to talk about my experience with it and how I saw it. And I'm going to pause and take a sip of water. Okay, I'm back. Now, the thing is that this modern feminine movement that we had actually started around in the 60s. There's been various feminine movements over the years in history, and also it never went away. They've been having feminine movements since Western society began. But I'm going to talk about the one that started in the 60s. And the thing is that I was there, I was alive, I remember it. I remember what happened. And that's what I'm going to talk about from then to now. Now, I was in the Air Force for the most part, and I was in my early adult years. In fact, some of it started when I was in high school, in junior high school. I remember when we were teenagers and I would be reading magazines like Young Miss and Mademoiselle, not Young Miss, but Mademoiselle. I like that magazine. And things like that. The lifestyle of the 60s was this. The ideal lifestyle, that is the white people version of a lifestyle. It wasn't the reality of the people around me in the black neighborhood that I was growing up in, but through the media, we were shown a version of a lifestyle, and it was the ideal version of a lifestyle that we were supposed to want. And that's when we were looking at TV shows like Leave It to Beaver with June Cleaver on it. I think it was June Cleaver on Leave It to Beaver. And Donna Reed. There was The Real McCoys. Even Lost in Space and some of the other ones. They were all, oh yes, and Father Knows Best. All of these TV show after TV show after TV show, had the had stay-at-home mothers who took care of the house, and the father would come home, put up his feet, read the paper. Dog would bring his slippers. They had the white picket fence in the little yard, and it was just a simple middle class lifestyle where the father works outside the home and the mother stayed home and cleaned up and took care of the house. They tried to live that lifestyle, but it was inherently imbalanced because the wife essentially woke up earlier than everybody else because she had to make the breakfast, and then she went to bed later than everybody else because she had to finish up the house. When he got home, she still had to cook and clean and do the housework before bed if she was running an efficient household. Then come into bed and service him. That was supposed to be how they didn't say that part in the movies, but that was supposed to be the ideal, and that was supposed to be what she was doing. She spent all day, in theory, vacuuming, cooking, and cleaning, and doing laundry and dishes and cook and all of that stuff. And as she watched soap operas all day while she cleaned, because that's what they would be showing on TV, and that's what we were led to believe was going on. Later years, I found that while these women were living that lifestyle, they also had to do other things after the parents got home from, I mean, after the father got home from work. As they say, bringing home the bacon and all of that. And sometimes the wife controlled the budget or the husband controlled the budget. But that was their ideal lifestyle, them. For us, the women most likely worked outside of the home as her domestic servant. Or somebody that would help them around the house. Like my family are people who cooked for these households when they could afford to hire somebody. And mind you, they didn't pay very much. My mom used to bring home the laundry of the man that she worked for, whose household, he needed his white shirts starched and ironed, so she would bring home his white shirts to clean them. And it was just money to be made, rather than sending them to the cleaners or to the laundromat to get starched and ironed. We grew up believing that white women didn't actually know how to clean because they always wanted somebody to clean up for them or cook for them. We really believed that, and in our when there were somebody white that did do some cooking, it was something so atrocious. They came home and told us about it. It was so bad. Everybody talks about the story of the white lady who make tuna by just opening the can and dumping it on the bread and handing it to them. You know, that I still remember somebody telling me that story. And so we grew up believing that white people couldn't cook or clean, and that was just what we believed. Now, that was the ideal of that time. Along about in my childhood and early years, the feminine movement started taking root around America. And first, you had to learn what they were talking about, and they were talking about women needing to work outside the home. Black people and Hispanics and Asian people looked at each other talking about what they talking about. We're already working outside the home, but they weren't talking about us. They were talking about them. But they're reaching out their hands to other women, fussing, and other women were walking with them, talking about working outside the home. We're helping you paint your sign to for you to march to work out your home. And that was always that dichotomy. Now, fast forward, I'm in the Air Force, and the feminine movement is really taking root. And the women of the feminine movement that were around me wanted me to join. But it seemed stupid to me at the time because there was nobody stopping me from anything I wanted to do. So it always seemed stupid to me. I do believe in ideals of equality and getting your worth and being able to do as you will. As long as you're not hurting nobody, you should be able to get the job, you should be able to get the pay, you should be able to get what you earn. Always. But I didn't need somebody to help me do that because I could walk in there and do it myself, and which I did and do. I was always physically strong and mentally strong. Men did not take advantage of me because they knew they had a fight on their hand and I could hold my own in a lot of cases. And you might say they might be fighting, trying not to hurt me, but I'm trying not to hurt them either. And they knew that. They knew that I wasn't nobody to play with. And so no man was stopping me from doing the darn thing. No man of any race, creed, or color stopping me from doing nothing. They knew it, I knew it. And I didn't walk around being a badass. I just knew that it ain't gonna happen. If I can't get you fairly, I'm gonna get you unfairly. And and it was logical to me to try to learn how to shoot, train myself for 2 years to get on a building to shoot you, get on top of a building to shoot you because I was that mean sometimes. I would go to the dark place. And no, I never got on the building and shot nobody, but I thought about it. Well, I thought about how that might be possible, but I didn't have, well, never mind about that. But I never actually got on the building and shot nobody. I can think of mean things to do to people, but I don't have the heart. I'm a really sweet person. I don't have the heart to really hurt you. I could think of stuff. Thank goodness I have that moral block that will stop me from doing some of the things I think about doing. But I do have a very, very strong moral block. And it's just really strong. And I don't never take and do the evil things I think and laugh at myself because it is funny, some of the stuff I think. But nobody that ever bothered me bothered me. And the way I think about things when I do want to get revenge is I think about the best way to hurt you without hurting myself and doing it legally. And I'm good at it. I had to work on myself to pull me back from that because that's a dark path. I always want to be mean and nasty, and there's enough evil in the world. So I started working on that a long, long, long time ago. So I'm at a mellow place now. But when I was younger, especially in the 20s, in your 20s, and I feel sorry for the kids in their 20s, those are hard years in general for males and females because every slight, every affront, every indignity, you got to retaliate because it's really strong hormonally to fight. And that's why you see so many young people so volatile because they got that in them to fight about every insult. And when you get a little bit older, those hormones go back down, and then you're able to mellow out and pick your battles if you have any. So that was, it's hard when you're a young person. Fortunately, I lived through it. The feminine movement on that during those years weren't a factor for me. So I didn't see them as something that to my advantage. I didn't worry about it, but it was all around me and all there, and it was all in the news. They were, excuse me, they were talking about burning their bras. There were names that were making speeches on TV and through the media. I was alive during Bella Abzal with her big hats, Gloria Steinem, um, all those names. The lady that started the Burn Your Bra movement. Yeah, women would get out there and burn up their bras. Nowadays, bras cost $60 and $80. I can't imagine burning those. But before, you might pay $2 for a good bra, and that was a lot. So those I was there when Cosmopolitan magazine started. I was alive and had an issue of the Vogue magazine with Beverly Johnson on the front. There was all of that going on all around me, and these women were talking about feminist movement. They were calling it that, and it was mostly about white women being able to work outside of the home instead of being at home, being homemakers. And that was when the beginning of the white two income family started. That was when it became popular, when two people had to bring home income, and that was the American two income family. For minorities like Hispanics, black people, and Asian people, and other ethnic groups, not so much, because most of them were working outside the home. Most of the women were working outside the home. Most of the families had to have two incomes just to make ends meet. But the feminist movement in America was about white women getting to work outside the home. I remember that. So I remember so much of that at the time. Now I'm back. Now I remember thinking about it, at the time, and my thoughts were this: as I was reading the magazines, listening to the speeches, and observing the behaviors and their concept, and that's when the seeds planted him. I said, okay, I'm looking at you, but you got all these new rules, all of these new concepts, and when the women fall outside of those concepts, they're not in the movement. And I said, that's not about freedom. Those are a bunch of women wanting to be new masters. What they're fighting against being a man being your master. That is, you come home and do what he says, but instead of doing what he says, you now have to do what they say. That's still not freedom, because they really did have a whole lot of little rules other women had to follow. You couldn't you couldn't work in the home if you wanted to. You couldn't do what else they said. You couldn't do a whole lot of stuff I forgot, but they got all these rules and because I was reading the rules in the magazine, and I said they just want to be new bosses. They just want to be new bosses. And I remember thinking that and promptly closed up the magazine because they had, not in it if you do this, you're not in it if you do that, you're not in it, and just a whole bunch of rules. Everywhere I was looking at, they telling you what to do. These other women telling you what to do, and that's still what is going on. They are just wanting to be new masters of other women, and that was my one of the reasons. And the other factor was that I didn't need them to help me do a daggone thing because I could do it myself. I didn't need you to walk in no office with me to tell my boss that I need to be paid equally. I didn't need nothing. There's nothing they could offer me that I hadn't already done or am willing to do myself, including on every level, on every level. So they didn't gain me anything. But I remember thinking also then was that when somebody asked me directly, what are you, asking me about my identity, how I identify myself. And they asked, do you identify yourself as black first or feminine or woman first? And my answer at that time was woman first. And the reason why I gave at that time, the reason why I said woman first was because I said there are two genders. And so one is male, one is female. And so I'm a female. So I identified that first. There are multiple races. So I identified gender first and then race because there were multiple races but only two genders. That was my logic at the time. And given the circumstances and the reality around me, that was a good answer. So that was a good answer for that time. Now that I look at the reality around me this time, I would say black first. I would say black first because this is the one that everybody sees when they look at me first. And so if I'm knowing I'm in this category and you've got all of this baggage related to that category, I need to make sure I know what page you on when you meet me. And so you have to be able to have the guts to be understand that reality. When I was younger, I was still living in my colorblind world. And I have to say colorblind, and I absolutely lived it. It took a whole lot for me to come out of that. But just because anybody just sitting pretty good and pretty comfortable with the races, but if you look around and look at everybody else having trouble in that world, then you gotta get off of your laurels and stand with your people. That's the dividing line. It's whether you're gonna sit pretty and be comfortable wherever you are, or B, look at your folks and look at your family and say, wait a minute, I'm going to stand with my family. I'm not going to stay over here and being comfortable. I'm going to get over, I'm going to get off my ass and go over here with my folks. Just because I'm comfortable don't mean it's all right. Just because I'm comfortable don't mean I'm saved. Just because I'm comfortable don't mean that all is fair and they must have did something wrong and that's why they out of the comfort zone and on the fringes. That's your dividing line. You got to decide whether you're in and you're going to stay comfortable over there with them, or B, leave them and go over there with your people. And I chose to be with my people because I ain't stupid. I'm just not stupid. That's the choice. No matter how you slice it, if you distill it down to this bare essence, that's the choice. Your famous rich people that are black, they're sitting pretty and comfortable until they get what they call that wake up call. Those that realize that where they actually do stand have jumped ship and moved over to the other side where the people are. That's where I'm going to be because that's the right place to be. Okay, so that was then. Now let's talk about now. These modern women who are calling themselves feminine are kind of silly. The white feminist movement is just almost like a cult, and it's not about black women. The white feminist movement has never been about black women. It's about having you in their numbers. They've People have already said that 1,000 times, and it's true. They just want to have numbers. They wanted black women in their numbers. If black women walked up and spoke and said feminism stuff, they'll prop you up and give you all the accolades in the world. You're speaking their language. Like In America, when something going on with a plant or a worker, they find a black union member to be a spokesman. But when in fact the union probably isn't really good for helping them. But they always have somebody black being a spokesman for that program, whatever it is, even though it's not really helping you. So it is with feminine movement. And these young ladies who are getting all the accolades and all of the support are actually doing it at the detriment of their own people. And that's what's the problem with it. It's not really helping. There's nothing they're doing that's going to help you. You're not going to get more money. You're not going to get any more rights because you're still black. And you're still going to backfire. And they're still using you. And so, excuse me, that's my thought. Those are my basic thoughts on the feminist movement of the modern times. You just silly women being used. You need to stand on your own if you want something. And I do. When I want something, I go with the power of my will and my personality. And always be willing to walk the hell out the door if they don't give you what you want. That all everybody that I ever worked for knew there was a line to cross with me. And when you cross that line, I'm gone. And I've proven that more than once. There was a company that I was working for, and I said, if you put me in that position, it was a job that I didn't want, that I've already done, and I paid my dues on the job. And I cycled through, and I was in another department. But then this new boss, I told her, I said, if you put me over there, then that's going to let me know that I've already done all I could with your agency. And she nodded. Then a few months later, this young man became the manager of that department, and he's always been my rival. And there's no way in the hell I'm going to do any work to make him look good. So I knew that I wasn't didn't want to be in that department. And this silly lady put me over there, had me scheduled to go in there, go into this department and work in that department. After I had already told her I wasn't going to do that, and when you put me in there, I'm going to figure out another option in so many words. And so I saw my name on the schedule for the following month to be working in that department that I told him about. What I did was go to the agency head pretty much and sit down and find a new job in a new position that's not in her company, not in her section of the company. And so by the time that next month rolled around, all the paperwork was signed and done, and the only thing she needed to do was acknowledge it because I was working in a whole nother part of the agency. And I think I came to pick up something, and one of my coworkers says, "Wow, you're full of surprises." I smiled, and she spoke to me a second, and she says, "I see that you're leaving." I said, "Yeah, well, I told you I would if you did so and so." And she had to nod. That's all she could do was nod. She looked at me silently for a moment and acknowledged that because I did tell her. But see, that was like the third time I had done something like that. So you're not going to find me where I don't want to be because I am plotting on you. And I will do that. And if that didn't work, I would do something else. And if that didn't work, I would do something else. So it's not that I'm magic or a badass. It's just that I'm looking at things and I'm thinking it through. I didn't need feminism to do that for me. I didn't, I, it didn't, it, they didn't never help me. Okay. I'm hoping that they do figure out how to get that equal pay thing, the Lilly Ledbetter Act going. That'd be nice. But they've been working on that or some version of that for like 30 years. So we'll see. Okay, that's the end of this one. Thank you for listening to me.